except I
We look
can,
like little teeny pygmies.
I can just record it, like we record it here, but it's not gonna stream
That's
unless you
not
go
good.
into YouTube.
So
Thank you.
I'm loaded on that machine. Now, that machine doesn't have a licensed PowerPoint. I don't think it's gonna be a problem to project it.
No, I just go to this council, presentation with council here, and then it switches. So you should see it, okay?
I think this is the replacement system, right? This is the replacement plan.
Oh, yeah, from the one,
From the one that we actually paid a lot of money for, and then didn't pay money, and then they erased us.
and we're using Lou Belasco's account. Oh, look, it's live. So
Well,
it is.
that's better for you,
Yep, it's
because you
working.
have enough problems to manage.
Just make sure you keep your microphones off until, yeah, because it's already recording. Hi, Bob. Okay, we're live.
Can I plug my phone in here? Or
Yeah, I
something?
don't care.
No? Oh, okay.
That's fine.
I didn't exactly see any like electrical things around.
You must be happy to be done with your first phase of this whole thing. It seemed like it took forever.
It's all
Hopefully.
right, it was fine.
Yeah, and I got it out to that one guy who didn't get it, and then he thanked me, whoever that was. But you probably have somebody in mind anyway.
No, I don't have
No.
anybody in mind. Any of those people are really good.
Okay.
I just want someone.
Right.
So now you tell me that you sent it out to someone, so that makes me feel good.
I'll check with Emily either tomorrow, because, you know,
It's
Erin
Thanksgiving.
went out on maternity.
Maternity,
So
yeah.
I didn't want to bother her at the
No,
beginning.
no.
But I'll go up and ask her, and probably when it gets to be like 1 week out, we should probably reach out to people again.
Okay. Well,
And say,
that's
we're
kind of-
still looking for bids, you know what I mean? Unless we get, like, we have one person, but you want to have at least
Oh,
three.
yeah, it would be good to have three or four.
Right, so we'll keep an eye on it because it's next, is it, no, it's the 9th.
It's the 9th, so it's
It's the
still 2
week
weeks.
after, still 2 weeks. So we'll get panicky like this time next week,
Yeah.
okay? All right, I got you.
All right, we're on the same wavelength here. That's great, thank you. I was gonna call you this morning, and then things caught up with me.
All right, this seems to be working this month. What a relief.
Hello, Judy.
Hi, how are you? Haven't seen you for a while. Good.
Yeah, I'm not out of hole.
The cold doesn't help anything. Hi. Yeah, we're good.
Historic Preservation Commission, November 21st, 2022. It is now just a couple minutes after 6. Pledge allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Campbell? Mr. Cogswell? Ms. Pisagno?
Here.
Ms. Wilson Stredick?
Here.
Mr. Testa?
Here.
Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Mr. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here.
Thank you.
I overlooked an important part that we go every month. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice to this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Sorry for the confusion there. Minutes, October 17th, 2022. You've had a chance to review those. Do I have a motion to accept them?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Sorry, I didn't hear who the second was. Was that B?
B.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Ms. Pisagno. Ms. Campbell? Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stredick?
Abstain.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Resolutions. Variday, 289 Windsor Avenue, 1027/22. This is Resolution 2022-49. Marakai and McLaughlin, 1009 Kearney Avenue, 1097/8 and 9. Resolution 2022-50. And Somoza, 1386 Lafayette Street, 1145/7, Resolution 2022-51. Do I have a motion to accept those resolutions?
So move.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Testa. Ms. Campbell? Yes. Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stredick?
Abstain.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Applications approved or denied in review. You've had a chance to look at those. Do I have a motion to accept those?
So move.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell.
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick.
Abstain.
Mr. Testa.
Yes, with abstentions for Reimer, 417 Beach Avenue, for the Mad Batter, 19 Jackson Street, and for 18 Jackson Street LLC, 12 Jackson Street LLC.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Thank you.
First order of business is Addis, Inc., 1317 Beach Avenue, Block 1146, lots 6, 7, 11 through 24. This is a non-contributing property to relocate the pool deck, patio, paving, and landscape.
You'll want to turn your microphones on.
How are you?
Fine.
well,
Need
and
your
you?
name In relationship to the property.
Sure. My name is Richard Garber. I'm an architect. My firm is called Grow Architects, and we have been retained by the Andy family. I have Francesca Santoro here, the general manager of La Mare Beachfront Resort as well, to present to you some modifications that we hope to make that are fairly minor there's really very little affected building here. This is mostly a surface treatment that deals with a pool relocation, a modest expansion of an indoor-outdoor portion of a restaurant, as well as some landscaped areas.
Would you expect your partner to participate?
Thank you. I just want to say on behalf of the Andy family, Gus, Fofo, and George, thank you for hearing this application this evening. We're really excited about replacing the pool that was the original pool that was there. So this is really exciting for us, but thank you very much.
And then if you would speak into the mic, and we need your name for the record.
My name is Francesca Santoro. I'm the resort general manager for La Mare Beachfront Resort.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me your last name again? Is it Garber?
Sure, my name is Richard Garber, Garber,
Thank you.
licensed architect, Grow Architects, GRO Architects. Okay, so I have a PowerPoint here. I think we submitted drawings, and the PowerPoint basically trails the drawings, and I also have a material board I'll speak to as well. What you see up on the screen here, and again, this is all in the drawings, and we could submit this PowerPoint as well if anyone wanted to study that as well. This is a visualization of what we hope to be the improvements we're here to talk about. And so basically from left to right, if you see the building opens up to the east, right? So we have a north and south flank and then the middle of the building. And then in that middle space, you see from left to right a pool with some decking, umbrellas and so forth, a grass area that's a completely pervious area with some lawn furniture on it, and then to the right, a new proposed roof and cover to the indoor-outdoor portion of the restaurant, which you can see has a series of foldable doors that are operable to basically create an indoor-outdoor experience here. To brief everyone on the project, and again, this is in the drawing package you see, our entire site on Beach Avenue, 1317 Beach Avenue is this kind of almost U-shaped property. There's one parcel that is not currently included in that, and you can see within that red bound area, the pool, which currently exists now, and what we're proposing to do is demolish that pool and rebuild it, jogging it slightly south, and I'll explain that in our drawing. So you see the footprint. The zoning map shows that we are non-contributing. We are in the Historic Preservation Overlay area of the C3 Hotel Motel District. That's why we are before you. We do need a planning board resolution to make these changes, and so we're hoping to get before the planning board beginning of next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Some existing photos. I'm sure everyone knows the project, or the property. It's been there for a long time, but this is a view right from Pittsburgh and Beach Avenue, taken earlier this year. This is a view looking north toward Pittsburgh. And then we have a series of photos here that show some of that interior court that I was just speaking about before, which is the subject of these surface and landscape improvements that we're here to talk about. Now, what we have done is we've broken this down based on your own application. So it is our understanding, as per HPC applications that we've made before, that the purview are materials and finishes based on scope of work. And so the items that we have up here are all subject to this scope of work. However, you'll see that it's fairly modest in terms of scope. And so what I have here is a series of proposed materials, and I'll be going through each of these and have some material samples. Now, it is important to note that at this point, the intent of these materials is something we will maintain. There may be modest substitutions for any of these materials pending availability and so forth. But the point is that the intent, the finish that is contained in this presentation is our intent. Right. Now, in terms of our existing site plan, this is the building, and then the white portion that you see is really the area, the scope that we are talking about today. And you see that it's basically a large parking area with the hotel portions over it. Again, the white portion that you see here, let me get my mouse on the screen, is the area of improvement that we are specifically talking about, and I will go into this more specifically in terms of our ground floor plan. Now, this is the existing ground floor plan, and you see that we have grass area, pool, small grass area, indoor, outdoor, patio that our restaurant serves, and you can see there's an existing door here, and this is all accessed via a series of connections from this parking structure and elsewhere. Our intent here is to take the pool, to slide it south to create a larger grass area here for a more formal organization of furniture, and then proposing a roof on top of this indoor-outdoor dining area so that it can be used throughout the year. And so you'll see that that is the kind of architectural portion of this. We are proposing that the roof would match the existing roof of the facility, and you'll see how that that lines up. I should let the board know, and I'm just looking at some notes here, that we are maintaining the exact coverage currently in our proposal. So in other words, there is going to be no difference in the proposed improvements you see from a coverage and drainage and runoff point of view, and that's something that we'll discuss with the planning board. We don't have our civil engineer here to testify tonight, but we were very, very careful about that. So it really is a one-to-one, and all we're doing is, in my opinion, improving on this area. Now, in terms of our ground floor plan, this is, in effect, our scope, and we have grayed out the interior restaurant here. The interior of the restaurant is not in this scope, but this is the existing condition that we are are talking about. Existing elevations, will go into those. And now our proposed floor plan is here. And if you see, I'm going to just go up, this is our proposed architectural plan, so these are the drawings before you. And I'm just going to happen to go back a few slides just so you get the visual of the change, right? So this is the existing condition. You see the pool is slightly more centered, not quite centered, but there's green space on both sides. And then there's this outdoor patio area, which is an indoor-outdoor portion of the restaurant. What we are proposing to do is formalize this a little bit more, add some more hierarchy to it, and I'm going to go forward so you can see. And we're going to do that by minimizing the green space on the left, on the south side of our court, proposing a more functional pool, brand-new pool, by the way. So the old pool will be demoed, so this will be current standards in terms of the pool design and so forth, with a patio area around us. Now a larger center area, which is a grass area. So there will be lawn furniture on this area, as well as a more formal indoor-outdoor space for the restaurant that now has a formal roof over it. And you can see that we have a series of hinged bifold doors that allow this structure to be opened to outdoors as well as closed, which allows Francesca and her organization to use this space throughout the year. So right now, what happens is as soon as the wind picks up, as it did today, as everyone knows, the outdoor spaces are not so usable here. I happen to believe that the beach in the winter is a really nice place. I suspect that you all believe that too. And so having this kind of indoor-outdoor ability is important to us. Now, to move forward, there are materials that we are proposing here, obviously, and I want to just reiterate again that these materials are concept materials. We have them specified. They have not been fully sourced yet. We haven't gone to purchase them yet. So pending any kind of issues, supply chain issues, et cetera, with getting them, these are what we hope to use, but the intent will remain. And if there are any substitutions, we're happy to put that in writing to the board chair or whoever you see fit. The idea here, and I do have a material board. Let me get that. The idea here, and I'll hold this up and go kind of back and forth, is that we have and I can zoom in here, actually, basically a wood trim that you see kind of going around much of these formal areas, and that's that kind of brown here. That wood trim, as you can see here, is what we're calling our pool deck. This is a porcelanosa tile. It's an anti-slip tile with a wood finish, so it's a cementitious material, which we feel it's a beautiful material, actually, which we are proposing. And that you can see is down here. So I have that. I can pass this all around to everyone so you can actually feel it, but this is a non-slip surface that's very important for the pools. In terms of the pavers, we have a very heavy paver here, which is, and I can pass this around as well, and you can feel it's very important, I know, for the board to feel these things in terms of the safety, the non-slip. A glacier white, and I'll go back to the plan so you can refer to where all of these are. And then we have, as well, a kind of concrete and then some pebbles that we're speccing as well. I do not have a grass sample, but I think everyone knows what grass is. And again, I want to go back a slide just to kind of show how that goes. So we have the porcelanosa paver here, all in these areas that are outlined in the brown for wood. We have the glacial white paver, which is lining here and through this area in the restaurant, right? And then we have a series of pebbles and so forth, which that shape is to be totally, to be kind of determined, but you get the idea of that, and that's to aid in our drainage and that kind of thing. Now, moving forward, I do want to get to the proposed roof, because we do have a new roof that we're proposing over that indoor-outdoor restaurant. And I have a sample of that as well here, which is the blue Regal blue is the finish. It is the roof. It's a standing seam roof, which matches the roof of the existing structure. And then we're showing a wood pergola to provide some shading adjacent to the pool, which you can see to the left in that slide as well. We do have a lighting plan. I can go into the lighting if needed. I have that here, and that's also in your drawing package. And then to kind of talk about how this plays out, I can go to a couple of renderings, which you can see behind you, and then I'm happy to take any questions. This is a view looking south from that indoor-outdoor restaurant space I'm talking about. So this is with lawn furniture. This is a completely pervious space right before you, and then you can see the pool beyond. The pool does have a small fence on it that I have details of as well. And then looking the other way, this is through that lawn back to the indoor-outdoor structure, which we're formalizing, refining a little bit, and you can see that blue roof on it. That's this area right here, right? So this is that indoor-outdoor restaurant area, and then the overall view that I started with. One other thing that's important, I think probably more important for the planning board, but just so everyone knows, is there is a mercantile license in the restaurant for 146 seats that is being maintained, right? And so what we've done is through this kind of more formal design and layout exercise, we are actually kind of splitting the way, again, more formally, that those 146 seats are allotted between the fully enclosed restaurant and the indoor-outdoor space before you. So I have a little bit more technical detail. I don't know if the board would like me to go into that, or if there's questions. Yeah.
I want to comment on one thing. Your application indicates this is for final. This would have to be conceptual because you have a pending matter with the planning board.
Sure, okay, that's fine. We're fine with that. Would you like me to?
Which means then you have to come back.
That's what we were, yeah, I mean, we understand that. We understand that. Would anyone like to see the materials?
If there's no changes, Bob, if they go to the planning board and then there's no changes, so this presentation stays the same, can that be addressed in review or has to come back? So at that time, if you would remind Judy, we'd put you first on the agenda. Let's assume for a second there's no changes, so then we could go through it pretty quickly, but,
Okay,
or discuss as needed on whatever changes may take place.
that sounds fine.
Normally, we go around the room. I don't think that's necessary here. I would ask, does any member of the commission have any questions about this application?
I have an interesting point I'd like to bring up. I think I have all my memories correct on how this happened, but the Peter Shields Inn put in a little outdoor seating area on the corner intersection of Pittsburgh Avenue and Beach Drive. We approved it.
It's Trenton and Beach. Trenton and Beach.
Yes, Trenton Beach. Thank you. You live in that area.
I sure do.
And everything seemed fine until all suddenly a fire pit appeared in that, and the neighbors got extremely upset and forced the zoning board to take a look at this fire pit, one fire pit. The fire pit was denied and is not being used, and we're now looking at an application right around the corner for 6 fire pits. And, when people say one board doesn't know what the other's doing in this town, this would be a perfect example of saying, are we listening? So I'm really concerned about all of a sudden approving 6 fire pits when one was a real upsetting factor. Now, I will grant, the one at the Peter Shields was right on an intersection of the street without hedges or anything out front. This is set back from the street. But 6 of these things burning would almost be a distracting bonfire in the front yard.
Well,
I think it might be a little bit of
To amplify a little bit, This is a facility that, in its creation and expansion, has had a fair number of problems with the neighborhood, and those have been largely overcome. I think it's a very well-run facility. I think it's been beautifully maintained, but it does strike me that the addition of the fire pits is likely perhaps not the place here because we're talking about conceptual approval, but the use of the fire pits is likely to generate additional comments, probably at your planning board level. So that I would anticipate that being, as Thomas pointed out, a real issue here. Not so much for we've never approved fire pits, but that will likely raise problems in the neighborhood. Beyond that, I think this has been a presentation of thorough use of materials. You've given us incredible detail. There isn't, in my view, any reason why what is sought to be done here, moving a pool, putting a roof over an open space, and doing it as you've presented, I see no problem in supporting conceptual approval for your application. But I would say be wary about the fire pit situation.
I mean, if I could, may I address that?
Sure.
So I think, so this is news to me, so I'm happy to hear it. We will, obviously, I'm going to speak with once we go to the planning board, we'll have an attorney. We'll have
This is of course, as you see from your zoning map, this is the end of the C3 zone.
Yeah.
And it borders on R1A residential property. The blocks to the east, and Beach Avenue generally is considered to run east-west, so your open U is really to the north. But be that as it may, this is the end property, and people have been pretty strong about the maintenance of buffers between Lemaire and the rest of the neighborhood. So I would say you need to be careful about that issue. There's been some prior issues of lighting, some prior issues of noise. All of those have been taken care of by management. And as I say, it's a very well-run organization, and I hope it'll be sympathetic to the concerns of the residents immediately to the north and the east. As for fire pits, they're great attractions, but they also raise issues when you're in a buffer area next to residential property.
And so if I may just ask, and this is, again, very, very useful for my own knowledge here. So your concern, your concern is not so much a historic preservation one, it's just making sure that the community understands.
As a member of the HPC, I don't have anything against fire pits.
Right.
But neighbors may have that issue.
Thank you. I got it, Mr. Testa. Thank you.
Yeah, we want to be careful not to get into planning or zoning issues, just like we ask them not to get into HPC issues. From an HPC standpoint, I think the plan is reasonable, and the fire pits are not offensive from an HPC base. I understand the 2 points that you made,
And it may be because this is a conceptual approval. This may come back to us modified a fair amount from what we see tonight. But I would be willing to move a conceptual approval for this application, pending further comment.
If they were to come back with the fire pits just as they are, having been approved by planning or zoning or whoever has to approve it, would you then continue to support it?
Yes, I would. I mean, because I think the concern for fire pits is not an HPC concern. I think it's a planning board concern, and people will have the opportunity to address that. Do you have a scheduled date for your planning board presentation yet?
We don't, I mean, tentatively it will be January 10th.
These always happen in the middle of the winter. But
The work has to be done for summer, so that's why we're here in the winter. Actually.
Understood.
It's nothing to do with.
Understood, yeah.
Any other questions, observations, concerns with this application? Anyone? Do I have a motion?
I'll move that conceptual approval be granted to the application as submitted.
And I will second that motion with attention to the planning board for the discussion that we've had over fire pits.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
You say Carol?
Yes.
Yes, Tom, yes.
Mr. Copeland.
You only get to vote once.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Francesca, can I have your last name again? It was long and I
It's
didn't get.
Francesca Santoro, Santoro.
Thank you so
I
much.
want to thank everyone
not
for
that.
hearing this application, and we are sensitive to the community and the residents around our property, and we hope they frequent our new space as we proceed forward. Thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thanks.
Same to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next order of business is Formica, 1125 New York Avenue, Block 1117, lots 22, 23, and 24. This is a contributing property, and it's a rear addition.
So for Michael, in the list of building materials.
Good evening. Would you
Hello.
turn that on? The button there in the front? There you go.
There, is that on? Oh, yeah, now I hear it. Okay, I'm Joseph Corder, Corder Architects, registered in New Jersey, and I have my clients here, Formica.
Mary Beth Formica.
Would you speak into the mic,
Sorry.
please?
Mary Beth Formica.
Thank you.
Mike Formica.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Move this over here.
This is an application for an addition and renovation of a contributing building. And the addition is straight off the back of the building. It's around 20 feet off the back for the building itself, and then there's an additional porch on the back of the building. The front of the building basically is staying as close to the original as we could.
Back away just a little bit from your mic. I
Oh,
don't think you'll
I'm-
get that feedback.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the front facade is basically the same. We've I think, improved the dormer a little bit, but other than that, it's exactly the same. And as your notes show, that the siding is going to be totally replaced, and we have put there cedar, but an alternate, it was this, it's called Smart Side, and I'm going to pass around these, because this is a sample, and you'll see that the Smart Side is really wood, but it's a pre-finished wood. So I don't know where it starts. But
Well, you can start here if you want to pass it. We'll just
Yeah.
move it around.
I just like
Good, got it.
that's an option that you can approve or disapprove.
The Certainteed Restoration Millwork, is that also modified product?
Yes, it is.
Because this is a contributing,
Contributing building, yes.
I think that's not an option.
and so modified products have not been approved by this commission for contributing buildings. The Secretary of Interior and our own standards look for original materials, would be looking for wood.
Okay, we can do that then, if the certainty does not.
Clearly a composite or a facing over wood, over pulp.
The problem is we have standards, and we either follow the standards or we don't. So I understand sympathy, but it's not consistent with what we've been doing. Even new construction outside of the historic district, we've not approved the rough green because it doesn't look like a cedar clapboard, which is smooth. So even in that case, we would have it put on the reverse side, so it would be smooth.
Joe, is that basically like a plywood with a finish on top of it to give, with real wood?
The smart side?
Effect of the wood we're looking for.
The smart side you're talking about,
Smart side.
the samples you're seeing.
Uh-huh.
All I know is I have the sample there, and, you know, it is real wood, but it's,
It's a pressed.
It's an engineered wood product.
Engin-
It's
is
impregnated
that what it's
with-
called,
it's-
engineered
It's an
wood
engineered
product?
wood product that's impregnated with resins and multiple strands of different species of wood, so it's a fabricated
But
product.
it's really pressed. It's not-
Correct.
Yeah, with a surface, with a.
And this rough surface is also,
Could we just move on the application, just removing the option, just in the materials checklist, you have, you know, beveled clapboard cedar and the option of smart siding. Could we just consider this as stricken from the application? Would that be okay?
What?
We could just consider the option that he has listed in the materials checklist as stricken from the application if he's willing to do that. So we're just dealing with beveled cedar siding.
well, yes, I think that's what we should be doing.
So rather
But
than,
that, with the agreement of the,
yeah, I would say rather
no,
than.
we can do the cedar if you prefer that. I mean, this was an option, and
Yeah.
it was, I think, recommended by the builder, but,
Could
you
we
know,
leave what's there up and paint it?
There's asbestos there currently.
I'm sure I can let.
oh,
the answer to that question from an HPC base is yes, but we would ask all owners, we have asked consistently, when renovations are made on a contributing property, that you return it as close as reasonable to,
Right.
I mean, that's what Cape May is made of. So asbestos siding that you have on there today would not be approved.
Okay. There is clapboard underneath it with clapboard.
Frequently, when you take the asbestos off, you'll find that the clapboards, in fact, are salvageable, might need repair. We don't know, of course, but we have seen instances where, to save the maintenance, because it is a burden.
Yeah.
All of us that have historic homes know that, you know, you're painting every 6 or 7 years, and you're touching up in between.
Right.
But in fact, if you took the asbestos off, you might find that the cedar is salvageable.
Okay.
There's actually
Fine, yeah.
in the packet
There is.
where they removed it, and there is wood siding on the building.
We just don't know if it's salvageable. That's only a small section.
Right.
Yeah.
Numerous houses have done that throughout town, and generally, at the absolute most, they've replaced 25 to 30% of the clapboard, particularly in corners where gutters were leaking and things like that. But for the most part, that wood has stayed intact, and it's first-growth wood, and it has more durability left in it than any replacement young-growth clapboard you're going to put up there. It's thicker. You know, there's usually some paint removal situations, but I've removed it on several buildings, as have other people around this table, and there's awful good wood under there. Early 20th century there, they were using the best of woods still.
Interesting.
all right, then, well, that'd be great then, if we can salvage what's there and just maybe repair some of it. Fine. Sure.
Droning on the same subject, Jeld-Wen is a really nice window, and we would support a Jeld-Wen window, but not a clad window. The window that we've been approving has a primed exterior.
Right, that's what we will use, yes, a primed exterior, yes.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at your
Yeah.
Oh, you're replacing, oh, I want to make sure I have this. So you're replacing the vinyl with gel wind 6/1 wood prime.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I missed
Yeah.
that.
Now, some of the windows, if they're in good shape, will remain there if they're the true original windows.
Let's go, you're- have I interrupted, or you're through with your presentation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yes,
Yeah,
It's an improvement, isn't it?
it is.
yeah, I mean,
It looks very nice.
when we
yes.
put the addition on the back, the entire roof has been replaced.
Is the air conditioning, the window air conditioner coming out of the dormer room?
We'll do that.
Yes, we're not putting window air conditioners in. No.
The asphalt roof you're going to put on, there's possibility that there might be the original cedar underneath of the roof?
No, there's not. It's plywood.
It's plywood?
We can see it from the inside.
Yeah. Because if the original was there, you'd have to go back, we would want you to go back to the cedar shakes.
They at one point had dormers, or not dormers, but skylights. And I guess when they did that, they took that off and put plywood.
Maybe we could go around the room, because we've talked materials, we haven't really talked about the addition, although it seems appropriate. John, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So I have a few concerns, and first question is, on the front elevation, currently there's a gabled dormer, which appears to probably not have been original to the house.
Correct.
So you're replacing it with the hip roof dormer,
Yes,
is that
yes.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the challenges I had in reviewing this is the elevations, front elevation and left side elevation don't match the photographs of what's there when you're showing the existing pieces. So for example, the bay window that's on the second floor seems to have somehow disappeared. I'm wondering where that went.
From the side?
On the front elevation.
That's on the
Yeah,
front.
it's not there. You're correct.
You replaced it with two double hungs.
No, it's the photograph shows the bay window on the
In the front, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but-
I don't,
No, that,
we can
I,
keep that. That's.
well, I don't think that was original either, see?
Actually, if you read the report about the house, it does say that that's a historical feature.
Oh, I like it.
That they,
It was original? I didn't think
it
it was.
appears to be based on the historical report.
Oh,
So are you proposing to remove it and replace it with two double
well, I
hungs?
was only doing that thinking that it was not original, but if you have a report that says it's original, I
Yeah,
don't think there's
it
a problem with.
appears to be, yes.
Keeping it, okay,
Yeah.
fine,
So that's one.
sure.
And on the left side elevation, the part that is before you get to the addition, on the first floor, there are two separated windows where the photographs show that currently it's a double window. So the photograph of what's existing and the elevations of what's existing don't match. So are you replacing those windows? I don't understand what you're doing there.
Well, yeah, this only shows the right side elevation, not the left.
So you see this photograph right here? This is this side.
Those windows are joined.
So you're moving them?
It was, but there's, is there a, you'd like to?
Well, just because of the room layout.
Oh,
So one of the things that would be really helpful
Yes.
is if we could have a set of existing elevations
Oh,
and
to
proposed
compare it with the-
elevations so we can tell the difference.
I got-
Otherwise,
I got-
we're just guessing.
yes.
Okay?
I mean, John is mirroring the same problem we're having on this side of the table.
Yeah.
Which is that it's, the combination of before and after is so put together, we really can't see the before and the after separately.
Be able to compare.
Yeah, that really makes it very difficult. And
So-
John's, who's a professional architect, is having that difficult. That we are really more at
So-
sea with that.
Unfortunately, we haven't gotten to what I think is my biggest concern, and that is our standards specifically state on page 53 that when you are doing an addition, particularly to a contributing house, that the new work shall be differentiated from the old, and in such a way that if it were removed in the future, theoretically, the essential form and integrity of the historic property would remain. So the way this is currently designed, there's no differentiation at all between the existing structure and the addition.
Correct.
So that actually is not in compliance with our ordinance.
So you would like a break in the siding, I would assume?
There needs to be some significant differentiation. In fact, if you look at the Secretary of Interior standards, they state it even more clearly on page, hold on, page 157.
Different material?
Well, so normally what's done is there's usually some sort of a change in plane of the wall, or some sort of, let's say, reveal, or a way to differentiate the existing form from the additions form, so it doesn't look like that house right there was the original house. So right now, the way that, particularly the elevation on the top left there, it appears as if that's all one structure.
Correct.
That wasn't an original historical house with an addition. So specifically, our ordinance calls for that. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge that I have with this.
All right,
this project.
now, I can understand how you can do that in the facade, but how do you do that with the roof? Is that, we'd also have to have some change in the roof?
So it's an architectural challenge, I get it.
Yes.
And I think it could be a really fun one, right?
You love a challenge.
Some people aren't here for the fun.
So specifically, if you look at the Secretary of Interior standards, it says, for example, distinguishing the addition from the original building by setting it back from the wall plane of the historic building. That's just one example. There are many, many different ways you could do it, but since you are putting a significant addition on, one could, for example, change the roof to not be a hip, but maybe, or it could be a hip, but it could be going the other direction, so that it actually becomes almost like a,
Well, you're talking about
well, so the existing house, if you look at this elevation, it comes down here, right?
Well, no, this is the...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Goes the other way. Yeah.
It's actually
Yep.
here, right? So what
If we could only see.
is where that existing wall is, set that back, or pop it out a little bit, or put a reveal in, and then the new roof could simply be a gable going that way that intersected this hip. And if you wanted to put a hip on the backside, you could, in order to maintain that vocabulary. The
John?
problem here is that the whole form is just being extended as an extrusion of the existing form, therefore we can't see anymore what the original historic structure was. Exactly. Yeah, that's right out of the ordinance. So-
John,
Yeah.
if you were to step that addition out or back, you could still maintain that slope because it would have a break in it.
Yeah, you probably could.
It wouldn't no
It's
longer
like
be
break in
the,
the roof, because the building
Yeah.
wouldn't be flush on the...
That would solve it.
Okay, that would solve it.
Can I ask a question? Do you have like houses or homes that have gone through this process, four squares, that we could drive by or like take, like somebody that
Yeah.
has resolved that problem?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few in town. Tom would probably be able to point you to some specific examples.
I'd have to think about it longer. But one thing I was thinking of that you could do is if there was, what the remains of what looked like an original vertical corner board of some mass, and then the new building came off of that. I do have one of those in the back of the Mainstay Inn where you can see that the last addition, left the corner board there and they added on to that. Carrying that into the roof line is a whole lot harder, but if it was in the building line, I would think that would be a sufficient indication that this is an add-on. You follow that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you're saying that
And-
roof line could stay as it is and the wall line could step in? You would just have more reveal in the soffit?
well, wait a
Is that
minute,
what we're saying?
No.
wait a minute.
No, I don't think
There's, each property is assessed in its own light, so looking at another four square first is not going to help. We have approved modest additions where we kept the corner boards that would differentiate, but it didn't, as I recall, have this roof problem. This roof becomes a massive design feature of the home. So if you step the addition in or out, that would break that line, which was discussed when John. Whereas if you just keep a corner board, that wouldn't change that
Right.
roof line. So while we've done that, I don't think it would apply in this application.
Right.
That's why he's chairman.
You want a more obvious separation is what you're looking for.
I mean, our rationale here is to preserve the status of this as a contributing property. And so when we express these concerns, when you put together a design that makes it all look like one, and while it may be a very pretty design and functionally it works, the difficulty for us is that we're always concerned that it could jeopardize the historic classification of the building as contributing. And that's where we start off. That's the major worry. The more that's done to it, the more likely that could happen.
And is that related to the length of the addition, like it being 20 feet? Like if it was 10 feet, would that be, it's just?
No, yeah, we would still look.
We'd still look for differentiation between the,
But maybe
so it looks like it's obviously an addition.
The
Whether
easier
it's
you
20
can
feet or
uncouple
15
it.
feet or 10 feet wouldn't make any difference. It's just that you want
That's
to be
it.
able to tell that there's been addition put on here.
Correct.
And perhaps it's easier to do that when you're dealing with the back of the structure as opposed to massive changes to the whole facade and front. I mean, to uncouple it and keep it historical is our objective to pass upon.
The only other question I have is, looks like you're removing the chimney, is that correct?
I think you're correct, yes.
Okay. Is there any reason why you're doing that?
Well, it's not really needed. It won't be needed.
It's not going to be functional anymore.
Again, with our standards and the Secretary of Interior standards sees the chimneys frequently as an important design element
Of the historic part.
house.
Statement of the period.
So the issue here really is that what we are charged with is trying to maintain the historic integrity of what's here. Otherwise, if it gets reassessed and has therefore lost its ability to be a contributing structure, then we could potentially lose our status as a National Historic District. So that's why we're here.
Fine, fine, but wouldn't
Yeah.
want to disrupt the whole Cape May
All we're trying to
theme.
do is bring it back somewhat, at least to what the standards are. I mean, if you look at this house now, it's been covered by aluminum and asbestos,
Absolutely.
50s.
Right.
Skylights.
Which is, I think that's all great. The problem is that right now, the addition is not distinguishable from the original contributing house. And I think that would actually, I think you'll find that you'll like it better. Because it'll start to break up that mass and it'll decrease its I would say, massiveness.
Right, no, I understand. Very well, yes.
That's all. Thanks.
So I'm sure not everybody wants to read these Secretary of the Interior standards, but they are right online, and you can search them very easily. And they often do have like a lot of suggestions that might not be exactly what you want to do, but might inspire you.
We applaud your effort here. I mean, and don't misunderstand this group. Taking off the siding, doing some things with the property is encouraged, and we don't want to put a downer on that. On the other hand, we have a responsibility to the city, and that's what you hear reflected here tonight. And I think it would enhance the property. I think breaking up that roof line a little bit would enhance the property, actually.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just worried about putting this all back another month. I mean, I'm not worried about changing something, but, you know, it all comes down to timing. And this project was already really approved by this group, I don't know, last year, was it?
Oh, no. So that was with the Lofmans when they owned it? It's probably been,
That's quite a few
We haven't
years.
even
yes,
changed-
several years ago. That's probably
Those
4 or 5 years.
Run out.
Certainly not when I've been on for the last 4 years, I can say that.
The plans you did for them?
That's like 5.
Yeah, when the plans I did for them didn't have that differentiation either. No, it was,
Well, that was 5 or 6 years ago.
yeah, right.
You have to renew an approval every 2 years if you haven't started on the construction.
No,
Okay.
I just like, have the guidelines changed, or since they had it approved.
Well, we certainly are getting a lot more serious about
Yeah.
protecting the architectural
Yeah.
history.
Yeah, over time, they have changed. I mean, they've become standards. So rather than suggestions about what would be a good idea, they've actually become enforceable standards written into the Cape May City ordinances, and it's our job to enforce those.
Actually, for the most part, this book of standards was approved by the city in year 2000. So it's 12 years old, we're in the process of looking at it for any revisions. It was actually held up by the state as one of the premier set of standards for HPCs, so.
So I would like to offer to you that, given your time concerns, if you would like to meet with a couple of us outside of these formal meetings with an alternative proposal, I think we'd be willing to do that just as a service to help you in terms of figuring out what might be an acceptable approach. Would that be of use to you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
With the conceptual approach, they have to come back to get, in order to get the resolution that
Correct.
Right, but at least we'd know
Where you're heading.
Exactly.
Doing
Yeah.
what we need to do.
In other words, I would do a preliminary sketch, and then we could discuss it. Is that what you're saying?
Whatever you would feel comfortable
Right.
proposing that your clients were also in agreement with would be,
Fine.
and we could have an informal meeting to discuss it would be
Right.
fine.
Yeah, just so we're on the same page.
At this point, then, it would be appropriate to table this.
Or do we want to grant a conceptual approval? With it, come back in 30 days and
I couldn't vote for conceptual approval to this design.
We don't have, we talked about bumping out and bumping in. But I don't think we have enough information. I would suggest that we table the application. And Bob explained that.
Just
The only
waive
thing we
the,
would need if we table it is your agreement that the time constraints for this commission to act on your application would be extended until you're able to come back.
Well, if we agreed to step it in a little bit on each side, would that be enough to approve a concept?
We have to approve plans,
No, we need
not
to-
conceptions.
And what about the chimney? Does the chimney have to?
The chimney should stay.
Should stay? Fine. Okay, then
Part of the era.
yeah,
So
it's
we
part of the
understand
historic,
waste
uh,
Yeah.
Does it have to be in that location, or can it be a different chimney? Or-
do you have like a portable chimney?
It's in the middle of a room.
We're-
It's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, well, we're looking for the chimney
know, but-
to stay.
Leave it on the outside and remove it on.
But we have an asbestos house.
Leave it on the
Right up there.
Do that.
No, we
can-
we appreciate
Theoretically,
what you're
yeah.
doing, and we're trying to work with you,
Chimney like ours, it's too
but we have standards.
held up and down.
Okay, I'm just asking maybe one little standard.
Well,
Sorry.
No, we can't do that.
I don't think we can bargain piecemeal here about what we're willing to do and not. You've heard the suggestions. You can take them into account. You can consult with people who are willing to pitch in and improve your chances for coming back. So I would just, right now, as a disposition, move to table this with a tolling of the statutory period for you to come back and present us with your revised plans.
Okay.
I'd second that.
Yeah.
All right?
And again, we need an existing and a proposed elevations and plans.
I
With
got-
measurement,
yeah.
preferably.
Do we have discussion on the motion?
we can.
Just one question. Joe, are the porch railings being redone as part of this project, or anything on that front porch?
If they need it, but we'll put them back exactly the way they were. I mean, in terms of the railings, I don't know what shape they're in, but
I couldn't tell.
no.
If you get into changing those, we would love to see you beef up the balustrades in that. There are,
Oh.
you know, these skinny little toothpicks in there, which is not at all typical what would have been original.
Original.
Columns, the.
Yeah. Our general standard is, your balustrade should be no smaller than 2 inches thick and no more than 3 inches between. So you get that a feeling of weight in the. front.
Massiveness.
And those railings definitely look like they were a later replacement.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah.
So you want us to replace the,
Now, if you're not doing anything with the porch, then
Oh.
we can't tell you to do anything with it.
oh, I see, okay.
But if the porch is becoming part of the project, that's what we would.
Yeah, well, the porch is pretty much staying exactly the way it is. We're not changing the porch. Yeah.
Cleaning it up.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Pasagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
And it should be noted that this is with, the time constraints are being weighed with the consent of the applicant. What it means.
Sorry, I just-
No, what it means is, we have to make, the commission has to make a decision within 45 days of the date that you applied.
Okay.
And if they don't make a decision within that time, you get what you want by default.
Oh,
Okay? So the alternative that they always would do would be to deny you.
okay.
So by extending this with your consent, we don't have to get through a denial and a new application and all that.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is Mark's, 821 Washington Street,
Yeah, thank you.
Block 1092, lots 20, 21, and 22. This is a contributing property, and it's a front porch. And
Hi, good evening. I'm Lynn Marks. The application is Gilbert Marks because I go by my middle name, so just to avoid that confusion. My wife
I'm Cheryl Marks.
and our architect.
Catherine Lawrence.
So,
for the record, Catherine and I had a very brief conversation about this application.
So anyway, thank you very much for your time this evening, and also appreciate, we've worked with the HPC a couple of times since we bought the house at 821 Washington Street back in 2014. We hope you're familiar with it because we're very, very proud of the way it's evolved. And, it's one of the, we get a lot of compliments on it, and we're very proud of that. So we have a front porch that is in bad shape in terms of rot. The roof is beginning to bow and sag, so it's going to need to be addressed. And one of the highlights that we like about living at the house, our kids, our friends, our grandkids, and now our great-grandkids come to stay with us. And the front porch is part of that whole lifestyle of watching, the grandkids watching the horses go by as the carriages come through. So it's a highlight and a part of that. And it's pretty tiny in terms of its footprint. So since we need to replace segments of this porch, what we're wanting to do is to move it out a couple of feet to expand it so we can get more access to it in terms of just livability and enjoyment of that. That's, everything else is pretty much, it'll be the same materials, it's like for like, or whatever the term is. All of that kind of stuff would stay the same. We try to reuse as much of the old materials as possible. The front porch is beautiful, so we're trying to salvage as much of that of the floor as we can. And of course, it has the ornamental type of things around it that would be just, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference other than the size of the porch. But then I'll turn it over to Catherine, the expert, in terms of how that would be done.
I thought that I would go through certain pages, not every single page in the application. I want to make one clarification on page 3. I call out a new wood shower, and we are not putting in a wood shower. This is only for the front porch. That was a typo on my part. Then I thought we could, to just sort of stress the point, if we looked at page 7. Page 7 shows pictures of the porch, the dry rot, some of the broken fretwork on the sides. And as we go through page 7, and then to the next page, 8, you can see where the wood is crumbling. You can see where some of the mahogany deck is in extreme disrepair. If we go to page 9, we can see where the balustrade and the railings that are attached to the posts are failing. If we go to page 10, I think it shows pretty well how the roof of this porch is bowing. There's a lot of damage above. 11 is just showing some more of the rot of the wood around the trim of the columns. Page 12. This is taken from the second floor, looking at the roof and the balcony. And not that anyone uses this balcony, but all of the asphaltic shingle is got holes in it all over the place. The columns aren't properly flashed, the posts rather. And we can see where, again, some of the fretwork is really gone to disrepair. And that would be the same on page 13. So basically, this is a twofold request. One is we want to repair this porch, but a lot of it is going to have to be replaced. If I take a ice pick and start sticking it around the wood, it goes right through. So this is also a danger that this porch is going to have a structural failure. On the same hand, I'd like to be able to, if there is any fretwork, one is we would try to reuse it, but we would certainly take it apart so that we could use it as a pattern to make new. Anything that we did would replicate the existing porch. In my opinion, I think this is one of the cutest houses in Cape May, and we don't want to take that away. On page 16, I talk about what we're going to do to the porch. We're going to remove the entire front porch. We're going to salvage as much of the wood trim as we can, reuse where possible. We're going to provide a new concrete foundation so the porch is secure in the ground. We're going to, now this is the second thing. So we're repairing the porch, we're fixing the porch, but we're also have the opportunity to add 2 feet to the porch. The porch now is 8 feet deep. In order to meet zoning requirements, we need to have a 20-foot setback. We can, under zoning rules, move the porch out to 10 feet. Since the porch is such a used portion of the house, we thought, why not? The other items would be to put a new roof on the top that would be an EPDM or an elastomeric roof, because this asphaltic roof does not work well. And even though it may not be exactly period, these asphaltic roofs have a tendency to fail in the hot and extreme cold. The other item is I had originally put down the downspouts and the gutters to be copper. I would like to scratch that from this request, as we are matching in kind. All of the downspouts and gutters on the house are aluminum that are painted to match, and they blend in pretty well right now. No work is to be performed on the main house, so this is strictly for the porch. And then I think if you look at the pictures that I provided, if we look at the plans, which is on page A2, the plans are the same with the exception of the 2-foot addition. We also have a section that shows where we tried to proportionately make the 2-foot so that it's imperceivable. And I think the most telling of the drawings is the before and after. So if you look at page A3, we have the existing front elevation, which is right in the center of the sheet. And then if you look at the bottom, the new front elevation, it looks exactly like the porch. So,
Catherine, just one point.
yes,
The 2 feet that you're adding, the plan that I have shows the porch being 10'6". Is it 10 foot or is it 10'6"?
well, the porch is 8'6". So the existing porch is 8'6". So we're going to add 2 feet to make it 10'6" and a half. So I guess the answer to your question is yes, we are making it 2 feet. And that's sort of the whole thing. So we're open for questions. And I think if anyone has seen, just a little side note, if anyone has seen the carriage house, which was approved by you all way back when, and the pool shed, I think you can, that was built last year. The Marks are really trying to keep in character with the building, and they're working very hard at maintaining this building so that it's a real joy.
It's an important building, as you've already stated, and it's a conspicuous building in Cape May. And,
For hopefully the good reasons.
and while the additional 2 feet sounds modest, it is a contributing building with the original footprint, and that's going to be the challenge, I think. And so with that, I'll just open it up for discussion with members of the HPC. Personal inclination would be to give an additional 2 feet to do with the things you're talking about, but from a historic preservation perspective, I don't think it's appropriate. But the question is,
So, a couple comments. First of all, if we were to interpret the ordinance, it says that if the entire porch is too deteriorated to be preserved, it should be replaced in kind. It also says that it should replicate the original porch in both materials and design. So I think a beautiful job in terms of, since it is so deteriorated, reproducing it like for like, with the exception of the 2 feet, because it changes dramatically. Even though you think 2 feet isn't much, when you look at the proportions of that porch relative to the mass of the house, it goes from a proportion of 2 to 1, height to width, to 1.63 to 1. So that's very significant. And in fact, if you look at the proportions of this, I am positive that this was part of the design, that the angle of the roof came down such that it hit exactly the point at the top of that baluster on the second floor. So do you see how, when you look at the original porch, it feels very vertical? When you look at this, the 2 feet, it doesn't feel vertical at all anymore. So it doesn't contribute to that verticality of that house. And its proportions have, for me, have changed dramatically, and therefore, to me, it has significantly altered the character of the house.
Yeah, we measured the porches of our neighbors, and we have a very diverse range of neighbors, because I think there was some concern that there was something magic about 8 feet. There isn't a lot of magic about 8 feet. They range from 6.5, depending on which neighbor in which direction, to almost 13 feet. Because when you come down from Washington Inn, which doesn't have a porch, and then you come to then the funeral home, which has a very large porch, and then our neighbor has the very large house. It is 12-plus feet. And then our house, and then you move to the lovely addition of our neighbors with the 10-unit condominium. They have a very small porch, but they have a turret that projects well out into the yard. So it may change the way it may change the way the line looks, but it is consistent with the two properties to our, whatever that is, east, yeah, up the street, towards here. It's more consistent with that, as well as the projection of the property that was approved by, I assume, HPC, whenever, in terms of where that property lies. And it does massively help us with usability of the property. And, we've tried to follow all the rules and everything, but if we do add a foot, it will change a geometric drawing.
Well, John has me drawing lines now here, from roof lines down to balusters, but I can also draw a line from the top of the dormer to the new baluster, and it still looks vertical to me. I'm not, my concern is, does the proposed addition or rebuilding, which it looks like it's going to be a really thorough rebuilding, because what I see in those pictures tells me you're not going to be able to salvage the main pieces, and if you're going to fabricate with exact reproduction, it's going to be a beautiful new porch. The 2 feet just does not offend me, and I don't think that, I honestly do not think that that will, given the view from the facade, the view on the three-quarter side, to me, that will not so fundamentally change the character of this building as to threaten its contributing status. So I don't have a problem in supporting the extension here of.
But it doesn't meet our standard.
Well, I'm not so sure that it doesn't. It's not, to me, a material change that's so important that it changes the character of the building. So my end point is that I don't think we're required to do an exact inch-for-inch reproduction here when this is replaced. That's my personal view, and I don't think that the standards compel me to. We've done other things that have increased sizes before, as long as they've been well done and they've been, in terms of the actual things like balusters and stuff, were complete replication. So I don't agree that it doesn't meet our standards in an overall sense.
We did put an addition on the back of our house, which you approved, which did change the way it looked, which we appreciate a lot. It would draw the lines differently because it wasn't there.
I'm in Jim's camp on not being too upset about it having 2 more feet. For one thing, I'd say 90% of the gingerbread houses in this town are not 20 feet back from the street line. They're right up on it. So this house already has a significant setback, which makes that porch coming forward, a little bit more visually contributing to it. I think one thing I'm getting a little bit worried about with all the railings coming off, has anybody said, oh, these railings have to go back at 36 inches, 42 inches high?
Well, we only have 2 steps up.
That's for the first floor.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to have railings,
That's right.
but you might get an argument from the construction office about if you're putting railings up, they have to be so high. You don't. On the first floor, you could keep them the same height.
And we intend to.
And-
And I will argue with the construction office.
And you can argue, I know that. Is the second floor going to be a working porch?
No,
Okay.
there's no door. It's
Then, yeah.
just a decorative
So
porch.
that's a pretty good
That'll be
argument,
another
that no one's going to fall over those rails.
That is not a working porch, and therefore, that should say, that would change, in my view, making those railings a whole lot higher. First off, you sit on the front porch, and the top rail is right in your view. Every horse has lost its head and things like that as they go by. You really don't want that. So
What
that
is-
would be great.
What is the new?
Well, generally, the railings like you have are probably 24 or 28 inches high. The new first floor standard, if the ground floor is, I think, 18 inches above ground level, is 36 inches. However, under some of the codes, if you are doing a restoration and the columns are there that even show the marks where the old railings were, I did that on a house in West Cape May, where I argued it with the boards and the construction office, and they put their railings back up, 5 feet up in the air, because that's where they were. So you can argue that point. But with the height of the first floor, that should not be an argument for you.
Yeah, it'd be
That's-
really
The second floor really is ornamentation. and-
Yes, it
and we have a project in Cape May now, the exact same situation, brought in, that looks like a 2-foot. It's almost the same proportion.
I mean, I said what I did about supporting this because I understand we're going to have a complete replication
Yeah.
of what we have redone where necessary in new wood. I think you're going to find you have a lot of new wood you're going to be putting in. Frankly, I've put too many ice picks through too many pieces of wood to know
Use your
that.
finger, you
that-
don't need an ice pick.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Looking at some of the front trim around the balustrades, it's shot. Likewise, I don't have any quarrel with the 2-foot extension. I realize that it does throw that just a slight bit out of proportion, which most people won't see.
Well, we'll have John over and, for a drink and talk about it at length.
Drinks don't work on
My
us.
concern is the fact of is to get somebody who can replicate all that millwork.
Yeah.
And I know you're gonna have to take it, if the roof is bowing because of the supports, well, you're going to have to take it off anyway to extend it. And you've got to tie it back in. You may have to tie it back in differently than they did in 1900, or 1890, when they put it on. Because I had a front porch on the house I was in. They had a 2x4 ledger board, and they had me make me put a 2x10 ledger board on it.
Yeah, we found beer cans being used as flashing in some of the areas.
In
so
our shed, in the
it's-
pool shed back there?
So we,
And that was before they made the beer cans out of aluminum.
Yeah.
yep,
But I think that, it's going to maintain one of the more charming houses in the city.
thank you.
And as Warren said, we do have another project, it's not far from where Tom lives, where they've had to take the whole roof off and rebuild it, and they're getting somebody who can replicate the millwork. So that's the hard part, and the expensive part. These things aren't cheap to do.
We've
If
made
the,
contractors very happy.
But if the construction office were to make you bring the railings up to 36 inches, would that additional height kind of soften the widening of the porch and make it look more in perspective?
The construction office is not going to make us, raise that railing, because I will show them the code. That we
My
do not
point
have to
being
bring it up.
That the additional height on that would make it look like it wasn't coming out as far. You know what I mean? Where if you have a 24-inch railing and extended 2 feet, it looks longer. If you had a slightly higher railing, would that give the illusion that it's not longer?
No, I think the railing, in my humble opinion, looks just perfect, whether it's 2 feet or not. It
Catherine,
just goes with the
Are
house.
the columns salvageable? I mean, could you scarf material at the base, do it so that it wouldn't?
The
You know,
areas around the bottom of the post.
they're so rotted on the bottom.
Now, inside those, I don't know what's inside.
They could have
Yeah.
taken a lot of moisture up vertically
Right,
into
right.
that. so
And
that
I
they're
want to be
just
able to
solid.
give them like a sonotube foundation, like a real foundation. And I want to hide, but put in some kind of hurricane clips. I don't know how many columns would be salvageable, but maybe we could use them, the middle part for the balustrade. You know,
Yeah,
Or
that would-
take very good pictures.
The reason I was saying, if they could be, if they could be repaired at the base,
yes.
then you would have the mark where the balustrade was. Yeah. Oh, well.
I wish you could come by and see the inside of our shed that you approved last year, because when they took it apart, we found practically 200-year-old wood in there. Some of the pieces were this wide, all the way up. Most of them are probably 14 inches wide, and we reused those in the interior of the house. And they are painted in different colors, and all they did was dry brush them and seal them with a matte clear coat, and they're extraordinary. So,
Lots of way to reuse the.
yeah, we reused every square inch. We even had a table set in acrylic, made out of scraps, you know, to put in that shed that is just gorgeous. And I invite anybody to come by and have a peek at it. Very proud of that.
I have a question, Catherine. You're going out to 10.6. Do you need to go to the zoning board? Are you in the setback?
No, we are not in the setback.
Okay.
Any other questions, observations?
I move that the application be approved as submitted.
I will second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Testa. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
I do agree with John that it negatively affects the symmetry, but I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that a,
I only get one vote.
so it's a.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
And it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Some votes way more than others. Thank you very much.
Your vote.
Next order of business is Hobrow Inc., 301 South Beach Avenue, Block 1014/1. This is a non-contributing property, and it's a fence.
We just got it now.
Evening.
This,
Basically, it's a lot.
yeah, I understand. The existing fence, the fence that has been up for quite a while,
Chain link.
chain link, and then had a bunch of stuff hung on it, other signs.
Oh, it was a construction.
And that was not acceptable to the HPC, and as it turns out, wasn't acceptable to zoning. This application is looking to have a fence installed until the property is sold. I presume you just
Yes.
don't want people walking their
Exactly.
dog.
It's insurance purposes. I'm having a really hard time getting an insurance policy because of this Cape May's a walking town.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can the applicants please introduce
Oh,
themselves?
yeah, turn your mic on. Button, there you go.
Kathy McDowell.
And we need names.
Yeah.
Chris McDowell.
And you are the owners?
Correct.
Thank you.
The reason that we're at full commission is the fence that's there is supported by sandbags, and it's
That's
clearly-
gone now.
That's gone.
Clearly.
Oh, it's gone.
Was clearly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had to put that up for construction
Yeah.
to take the building down.
And that fence,
Everybody has
until
one.
this property is sold, is probably not appropriate. So we need some other kind of fence.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
And that's why we're here.
Yes.
So, having said that, we have the Murphy fence. Which is better than what was there, but is kind of a ranch.
I'd like to ask the question of why you chose the fence that's part of the application.
Well, it's basically an inexpensive fence to do for temporary.
Cost,
Trying to
cost.
spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
The fence is going to be taken out in a year or whatever when somebody buys the property.
Is property actively being marketed now?
Yeah, I can see in a way where really by having it more of an open fence, it makes it a lot
Feel open.
more pleasing to look at, and people walking as opposed to a wall of a fence.
But we don't want people trespassing on the property, and somebody could get hurt and sue us.
Exactly.
It's for, just a purpose.
So what kind of fence does the insurance company want?
Just something so that people cannot
Well-
get onto the property, They just don't want lawsuits.
They'd probably want 8 feet tall and chain link.
With sandbags.
Hip, they just want to make sure nobody slips and falls on that property.
A little razor wire at the top.
Yeah. Unless they were liable for the cuts of the razor wire.
Like I said, it's temporary till someone
And
buys the
back,
property.
people have to be looking at it and also hopefully.
But especially with the interest rates going the way they are, I mean, it's conceivable this property could sit for a year.
It's conceivable, yeah.
If there's one fence in our standards that says this is inappropriate, it's this old Abe Lincoln split rail fence. It might have got him at the White House, but it didn't get his fence into our standards. And in trying to be very sympathetic with what you're facing and having it part-time, I was just even thinking maybe if you would consider doing an appropriate fence that could be really sold along with the properties, that the fence around your houses is already a very nice fence, marking the two properties, and then it would meet our standards. If we give a permission for one fence like this, we got to battle with everybody else around there. Like, when
What kind of fence?
when our ex-mayor put up vinyl railings around Convention Hall, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to have vinyl railings, so these things all set a standard in every lawyer's mind who's bringing applications before us, and we have to fight them. So I think it's going to be very hard for us to prove exactly that, but a modest wood
Tom.
fence.
Can I do a dune fence?
The
Anything.
choices
I
are
just want
already on the page.
Choices on the paper.
Well, there's choices, but they're Xed out.
No, I understand, so the purpose is to un-X them.
Yeah,
It's,
I mean, we just wanted to keep it open, because we figured that's what you wanted, was like a more openness. Some of these other fences, they're not open.
I'm sympathetic to the expense portion, but the railing the ranch fence is not appropriate, although the two other ones you have on that page, 401 and 402, seems like either one of those are appropriate for Cape May. Does anyone on the commission feel differently than that?
Yeah, the alternative fence would also obviate the need to put the,
At Swain's?
I think it should be the least.
At Swain's?
Wait a minute, only one at a time here.
I'm sorry.
to the end?
Or here,
I have them, yes.
there should, you have it with you? 'Cause
Yeah.
there is a standard fencing in the book.
Correct, and you know, it actually might help you as well, because if you use one of those other fences, you wouldn't need to put the wire mesh in that you were calling for.
I'm just trying to keep the cost down.
Well, what I'm saying
I
is
just want
you-
to get the insurance.
Well, what I'm saying is, you would have to pay the additional amount to put the wire, the black coated wire in.
That's already included in all the pricing and everything that we have.
But we're beyond the pricing. The question is,
I think it's just a standard 4-foot picket fence.
Yeah.
which
Yeah, this is.
is 402 or 401? That was my point.
No, those are board-on-board, Warren.
What?
They're board-on-board, which are not, I don't think are approved in our standards.
But a simple picket fence that's open, I was just saying, that these are Xed out, but a simple picket fence that's open, that's 4 feet high, and doesn't have wire, might be really competitive on cost, and it will permit view through, and it'll be consistent with what we could approve.
That was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't gather it, but I'll get there. So maybe 401 and 402 are not so great in comparison with an open.
Like the 301 over here?
Let me,
I don't, you don't have something we don't have.
you're ahead of me.
That'd be like, the 301 would be like a standard picket fence there?
Yeah.
Or something like
So-
that?
Yeah.
This one's coming around. You're going to like it.
In wood,
Just a straight, just a straight.
not,
picket
not,
fence.
Yeah.
not
Oh, vinyl.
AZAC or anything like that.
No.
We'll set the precedence.
Even something simpler.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
301 is very similar to the 19th century fences that were all around town.
Yeah, that's what,
You know, with like 6x6 standards to them rather than 4x4. And even, you know, on a little bit simpler scale, the 300 is pretty darn nice too. I'll pass that down.
Since we don't have that document that's being passed around, could you just tell me the manufacturer of the number 301 that's on the spec sheet?
This is Murphy's catalog. Murphy. It's-
But
Murphy?
If it becomes part of the application, we can take a picture of it and
Okay, thank
include it.
you.
be a Murphy fence catalog, yeah.
Pardon?
Murphy fence catalog.
Number
What
301.
I've seen, these-
Thank you.
These,
what,
301 it's got the,
Just a straight picket fence.
I was thinking Victorian space, you know, those, you know, that's probably the least expensive fence they make. Yeah.
do I have a motion?
I was going to let Tom frame this one, but I would move that we approve the application as final, but not as submitted with the split rail fence, but rather with a choice of the fence that appears as number 301 or 302 in the Murphy catalog. Is that adequate enough?
300 and 301.
300, I'm getting my numbers wrong. 300 and 301.
Series either, yeah.
The underlying point, this is not part of the motion, the underlying point being open pickets.
Well, that seems, that's
Yeah.
kind of all over the place.
Well, let's just, are we talking about 301? Make it part of it.
I've forgotten.
301.
Or something simpler.
That's fine. I mean, so, all right, so a motion is to approve the application with the understanding that the fence that'll be erected here will be 301 out of the Murphy fence catalog.
In wood.
In wood. Wasn't aware they made it in anything else, but in wood. In wood.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Cogswell.
Thank you.
Mr. Cogswell,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Pasagno,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pip, you have a phone. Would you just take a picture of that, please?
Submit it to our official photographer over there.
She gets extra pay for this.
But she only gets paid by the picture.
You're going to send me the picture, Pip?
I will send it to you, yes.
Give us the catalog, it's up to you.
What?
They can have the catalog. I can have them come back out and.
They're making it easy for you, Julia.
Much appreciated.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Well, you got a prettier fence. You got a prettier fence.
Yeah.
Open to the public. No public, so we'll close it to the public. Discussion points. I have something I want to discuss. I distributed it earlier, but before we do that, Pip, could you just give us a quick update on where we are with the design standards?
So the design standards bid application, the RFP, was posted in the paper on the 9th. So people have to have their plans in by the 9th of December. And Judy says she checked, and we have one person who requested it so far. We sent it out to 12 people, telling them that it was available. So we won't, it's a little early yet. I mean, we won't know until maybe next week how many people request the package. And just because they request it doesn't mean they're going to submit it. But we do want to have some people request it, right?
Okay, thank you. The training session, Bob has reviewed the chances of us having this training session outside of the public, and that's not possible. And so I think what we should do is add that to maybe our next meeting, and we'll just discuss openly the pictures that we received, that we talked about, that we would, if we had it to do over again, we may do differently, or in fact, we are pleased with what we've done. I think it's important that we review our own work and assess ourselves going forward. We just have to remember while we're doing that, that the public may be listening, could be listening. So,
the session
as they
we did
are
on our
now.
home computers doesn't count because it wasn't
Because you're not
open to
a
the public.
quorum.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess we could set up a Zoom. Would that change the dynamic?
Well, it would have to be advertised that the public could access that.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. I think we may, I mean, we go to all the additional work to setting up a Zoom, and it doesn't change anything. So maybe, since we have to do it in the public, we might want to think about this a little bit, and
What if you divided the HPC up into two groups?
or more, because if you have four, it's a quorum.
Oh, all right, so more groups, like 3 groups. I don't know, I mean, if you did that, then there wouldn't be you could just have 3 group discussions. And that could be done really easily on Zoom. I don't know if that's legal or not.
Well, you
no.
just don't want to have anything, you don't want to have anything that can be tagged as a meeting, right? You just can't have, it's just the sunshine situation.
I'm not the lawyer here, which is why I said to Bob. would
Breaking
something
up into
like that
rooms
work?
What was the
would not
I'm
have
gonna
us
get
in a
three
quorum.
separate
As long as it's
meetings.
not a
Still have a quorum.
It's still a quorum.
As long as there's not a quorum.
Oh, as
Group.
long as there's not a quorum.
there's not a quorum.
In that group, you could meet.
Do rooms.
Oh, we
But-
could.
Oh, all right, well, then
problem with
that's
that-
what we should do.
The problem with that, though, is you don't get the dynamic, the group dynamic of everyone participating, looking at a picture, and
Yeah, I mean, that's really I mean, it's great to have 3 or 4 meetings, but they're going to be different and they're not going to be
Why are we
unified.
so worried about the public hearing us talk honestly about something we're passionate about that we devote all this
I-
time to?
I'm not worried.
I'm comfortable.
I mean,
Just
you
so
know,
we
we have to
realize-
be diplomatic. We can't, you know,
Well, we
make
don't-
fun of
The pictures that we look at, we don't want to talk about names or addresses.
Right.
Right, never do that.
But other than that, we're not going to discuss anything that's,
Actually, it could serve an educational purpose if it were open to the public, so
Yeah.
it seems like that would be of value.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, and I think people who are motivated to watch are going to watch, but let's face it, our public's not that big for this exercise.
Just look at who's here.
I mean, I think
Bob?
And we all know who they are.
For the New Jersey Cultural Trust, I have to take a class every year in ethics standards. And I just do it at home, I run it, and then I fill out this thing at the end, send it in.
Yeah.
There's no public involvement in that.
Because you're getting, it's not your group. You're getting an education from somebody else. It's not a meeting, a work session of this group, so you could do that.
But we were taking a program from Rutgers University.
That's right.
And listening to one of those. That's not our group.
Exactly, and that's why you don't have to have the public involved.
So doesn't that count for our year, our
we're not
education?
doing the year. That's not what we're worried about. We were trying to figure out the houses that we had approved in prior periods. This doesn't satisfy the 8-hour training. You still have to do the 8-hour training. In addition to this training, it's going to be
So
an enriching year for you, Tom.
If this group got together,
I'm sure it will materially improve your capabilities.
Given that Tom wants to
Tom, this
take
group
0
meeting would
hours.
be considered a work
Right.
session.
You don't need hours.
Okay, so that would be, if this group does that, it's considered a work session, and you have to have that open to the public.
Oh, boy.
Bob, I have a question.
I'm just thinking that meeting is like 5 days before Christmas, 6 days before Christmas.
No, there's no, this doesn't meet the 8-hour training requirement. We still have that. This was a result of conversations amongst us in public where we talked about buildings that, in retrospect, we may not have voted the same way if we realized what it looked like in the streets.
Maybe training is the wrong word. Maybe it should just be a discussion session.
Well, it's just the work session, I mean, for whatever. I mean, you're used to that thing, right?
Bob, does that change if we don't call it a training and we call it a discussion of previous approvals?
No, that would still have to be open.
No, it's open, but,
Pardon me?
yeah.
Yeah, yes, it'll have to be open.
Is there any comparable possibility, and I have no problem with having open meetings, but there's any comparable possibility of you rendering legal advice to us so that it could become a closed session, subject to privilege of counsel?
No.
Not heavy enough on the legal?
No, this discussion or work session, whatever you want to call it.
You're not the central actor.
It's still a meeting of more than a quorum, so we would have to have it open.
But some meetings that involve primarily, you are instructing us, for example, on legalities, are closed sessions. They're not open to the public. The council does this all the time, when they get legal advice, when they're being updated.
But those are only specific areas, like, your contract negotiations.
Yeah, I'm just
personnel.
trying
Yeah.
to see whether there's a comparable,
Not the content, it's the fact.
It's a quorum.
That it's part of it's a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter
Right,
what
but-
what you're talking about.
yeah, this is pushing in a direction I don't care to, I'm just not going to go there. I don't mind having a meeting where we all do this in front of the public.
I don't know if there's going to be too much in the way of public here. I mean,
Yeah, I'm comfortable anyway. I mean, we'll use handouts. We'll all have handouts with the pictures that
we just refer to
all
that.
submitted, and we'll talk about each one of those handouts. We don't even have to make decisions on them because they're already done. It's a question really about how we're going to move forward. We should be looking forward.
I think that's going to also help us frame our standards as well, like what we do, what we don't do, because that's, when we were looking at that with PIP, those were some of the areas, and John and B, those are some of the areas that we were looking at doing as far as our standards.
Like the fence issue, that should be, standard throughout the historic district. Yeah. It just talks about contributing in key structures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I have the floor for a minute?
As it codified.
Yes?
I brought some things that I think some of you all might be pretty interested in, and I'm going to leave them up here while we're wandering around.
That's
City
great.
Council has already taken a look at what might happen at the very north end of town, and they seem pretty enthusiastic about it. And these people will be coming to us, but if you want a preview of what they're going to present, I have that up here. I did find another company that makes synthetic shingles, and I brought one that imitates slate, which
Oh,
I
wow.
think is a pretty darn good job, even better than cedar shake. And since we talked about our only Octagon house in Cape May, here's a book on a house right below Terrytown, New York, that is open for tours. In fact, Sue and I are going to tour it this Sunday. And it's the most amazing Octagon house ever built. And if any of you all, if you're taking a glance at this, would like to borrow it at some point, I'd be more than happy to loan it to you. It's a wonderful story, not only about this house, but about Octagon houses in general. So I'll leave it here while you're wandering around.
Tom loaned me that book. My wife and I both looked at it. It's really fascinating. It's quite different than most Octagon houses, and it's so large. And the materials that you're looking at, remember, would be for non-contributing properties, not contributing properties, or keep. We had a reversal, as you know, on our zoning. Maybe Bob could give us a quick recap of that. And then I have distributed to a proposal for a motion. But first, Bob, would you just give us a quick recap?
I don't know how quick it was a 2.5-hour here, and I do encourage everybody to go to the live stream on YouTube and watch that. I got the sense that, well, in my opinion, as I argued, I don't think the zoning board followed the requirements that our design standards be accepted, because that's in our zoning ordinance, that our design standards be accepted, and they were not. The design standard we were talking about in this particular application had to do with prohibiting front yard parking. Crystal clear, one sentence, can't park in the front yard. You can't misinterpret that. And that's part of the design standards, and there's another section in the zoning ordinance which says the design standards on an appeal to the zoning board should be accepted. And here they were not. Now, there were various reasons given by the members why they did not. In my opinion, the bottom line was that they wished to have a second parking spot on this particular lot because that met the zoning requirement that a single-family residential house have 2 parking spots, and this accomplished that. And if they didn't permit that, in other words, they would affirm what HPC did, that meant that the rest of the project in front of them, all the variances that were needed, would also be thrown out because that parking spot was a condition. And I think they wanted the project to go forward. There was a lot of discussion about what was said during a prior conceptual review of the project by this commission, in which the plan presented at that time, a very sketchy plan, it wasn't a final plan at all, showed a triangle, the accepted designation of a parking spot, on the conceptual plan, on the plan that was presented for conceptual review. And they felt that, well, it was there, although not discussed in any detail by the commission, that the giving conceptual review as we did also gave approval to this parking spot. Good part of the 2.5 hours was an argument about whether that was the case or not. There's another section of the same zoning ordinance that says a conceptual approval by this commission is not binding on either the applicant or this commission. In other words, when you give conceptual, you expect there to be changes. They shouldn't rely on that. The attorney for the property owner argued that they did rely on it, and they should be able to, but that's contrary again to what the zoning ordinance says. Shouldn't be bound by it, one way or another. So there was a lot discussed. I think the intentions of the zoning board certainly were good. But they looked at it through zoning eyes, not through preservation eyes, and that's where the difference is. And I think they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish for zoning, but not necessarily for preservation. You'll get more of a sense of this if you look at the whole hearing. And I got to say, I think it would be entertaining to do that.
I'm glad you put it that way.
It was
I
very,
listened to the whole thing. I find it entertaining.
I've never thought of any of our live stream reviews as entertaining. but-
Yes. Bob has an unusual idea of entertainment.
well,
Actually, that property is an anomaly, because there are 2 properties together on either side of a single driveway.
Oh, yeah, I
And
remember, yeah.
There's a 2-car garage at the end of the driveway, which one half goes to one property and as I recall, looking at the property, there's not room in the back to put a second parking place. However, there's plenty of on-street parking.
And the argument was that this shared driveway, going back to the garage, the property owner on the other side has a car parked in the front. So this would kind of like complete the match set. I think they looked at that too.
I think the problem, though, is one that we've been dealing with for 15 years or so. What seems obvious to us, in this instance, our standards, which are part of the zoning ordinance of the city, oath of office that we've taken to follow those standards, it clearly says no parking in the front yard. And that should have carried the day. I mean, that's sufficient. It's black and white, it's clear. We've had this before. We have another recent ruling that allowed, as you may recall, I won't go into that detail now, but allowed parking under a property. Again, our ordinance is quite clear. If you elevate a property for flood mitigation, that area cannot be used for storage or for parking. It's black and white, it's clear. Zoning continues to just do what they want, overturn us. If there is any arbitrary or capriciousness, it's done by the zoning board. We have asked, we did training several years ago. We had suggested that we do training again. That was rejected. The training wasn't necessary for zoning, from zoning. I had asked for a letter of censure a couple of months ago, which was taken back to City Council, and a letter was developed, not of censure, but an explanatory letter, a comprehensive letter was developed by the solicitor that was clear and made the points that Bob made and made the points that I just made. And in conclusion, said that that we are the ones that are trained, we are the ones that take the time to understand and implement the standards, and that we should be given due deference. It's still not taken. And so, rather than just do a casual, we should do training and that rejected, or for me to say something like there should be a letter of censure and you were good enough to take it back to City Council, clearly that's not adequate. On the other hand, I don't think we should be willing, as a strong HPC, to, while we follow the law, I don't think that should be overturned by a body who is not as qualified. So, the approach that I would like to take is in front of you, and we should probably read it into the record. I asked, had a conversation with a couple of you, including Jim. I asked Jim to put this together. Bob, it's appropriate to read it into the record, or is that not necessary?
You know, my feeling is that I think this is an excellent start, but I don't think it's the end product. You know, I know.
Well, it wasn't going to be the end product. It was going to be the beginning. But I know you're sensitive to the timing issue with respect to getting everything together that will come out of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, because you were there, the decision was made, but it hasn't been formalized into actual language. And I know you're sensitive to that. I thought that if we're going to proceed down this road, it probably made better sense to study what we could do. And that really was the hope of the motion, to simply get us on the track of looking at what the alternatives are, anticipating that it is as clear, for example, in this one, as Warren just stated, that we had a really clear disregard of the proper appeals
Well, how
procedure.
about we do this? You see this as a draft, and not to make it a motion yet tonight. Agree as a group. What this would conclude is that Jim and I and Pip Campbell would meet, review some of these recent decisions, and begin to document some of the issues and concerns that we have, and bring that information back to the HPC with the idea of then carrying it forward to City Council.
And-
So rather than take this tonight, Bob's point is well taken, because part of the review that we want to do would include the conclusion from.
Yeah, they're going to have a resolution. They're going to have to say something. And I'd be interested in seeing if the resolution is as bad as the actual mechanism of the decision, because I didn't ask you before, but there were instructions, I assume, given by council to the board before they voted. Someone must have repeated the standard of the ordinance that was enacted in 2016, 2017, which, to my way of reading, should have cleared this problem up without a doubt as to how it should have come out. And I take it that they just disregarded council's instructions, or he didn't give them? I haven't had the pleasure of the entertainment of watching it yet.
Well, what we want to do, though, is, we shouldn't discuss it tonight, because the idea, or what I think the only thing we need for tonight is an agreement by the group that will form this committee. The committee will look at a couple past decisions, including the resolutions that are associated with them. And we will come back to this group with a recommendation on how we think is a way forward to benefit the city. At the end of the day, the standards that we have are geared to protect the National Historic Landmark city. The citizens of this city benefit from that. Just look at the housing values and the businesses and the fact that we have something much more significant than a 3-month season. It should be protected. And it's being jeopardized by these decisions that I personally think are wrong, but let's take a look at it. So I think it might be better not to discuss it further, with the exception of, are we all in agreement
I certainly am.
to form a committee? And
Yeah, since, just a quick question, since I am a non-voting member here, could I be in attendance at these committee meetings? Because I think it's going to require something as far as ordinance changes, things like that, that I think that it might be beneficial.
One of the outcomes may be a recommendation to review that ordinance again and make it even clearer.
Right.
So your involvement would be very important.
You would be the most knowledgeable person on council if you were to
yeah.
listen to these things and understand why we're so, well, you already understand why we're concerned.
Right.
But how to find a
fine-tune
solution
it,
to
yeah.
that.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Lorraine,
I
will
just have one question. I don't want to prolong the meeting or anything. But is there a common thread here with, a subject? Is it mostly parking? What is it when they?
No, it's,
Common thread?
I don't know, and as I said, until we do this study, we should probably not talk about it too much. It appeared, as you know, it's difficult here, turning people down to do something because it doesn't meet our standard. We saw that earlier today. It doesn't meet the standard. They want to do it. Sometimes, there's a part of us that agree with them. We want to help them make their house more presentable. But the question is, the standards are put in place purposely. They're approved by the New Jersey Historic Preservation Office. They're consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. And we're obligated as a National Historic Landmark to use those and to follow them. And that's not happening. So there's not a common thread other than somebody just doesn't agree, and so they vote to overrule.
My impression is they just want to give relief. They just want to give relief. We look like we've been hard, and for the reasons we do what we do, and then you go to the ZBA and you get equity relief. You get relief from your problem. It's like a escape valve, but pretty soon the escape begins to overwhelm the process.
Now,
One quick question, Bob. Are prior zoning decisions precedent-setting?
Are they? No, absolutely not.
But popularly, Corbin, they will be, in the sense that the channel, which resulted in the 2016-2017 amendments, the word will just get out that if you don't like what's happening at the HPC, try your luck at the zoning board.
well, and even worse, I think, if you're a citizen and you elevated your home and you wanted to park under it and it was turned down, and then someone else shows up and has the exact same circumstance and now they can park under their house, then you've been injured, you've been damaged, and you may seek recourse. I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but this has serious implications for the city, and I don't think it's recognized. As a group, we've tried to get the attention of the people that can affect change. It hasn't worked yet. I would ask you to read this, though, even though we're not voting on it tonight, because I think we need something stronger than just a conversation amongst this group and a request to do something.
Am I correct in saying there might be a disconnect between the standards and our ordinance, our zoning ordinances? I mean, where we need to look at, looking at our standards and maybe incorporating them within our,
They are.
They're already,
but not,
They are.
they're already in, they're a part of the zoning.
The standards are law in the city of Cape May.
yeah, no, they are, but they're not specific within the actual zoning ordinances. No,
There's a reference to the.
there's a
design
reference to,
standard,
yeah.
and
But
that's-
I don't know if they're actually, if,
What happens is if you say they are, then this is the body that fleshes them out. This is the body that takes the standards and applies them to the facts as they come up in front of us. And what's really happening is if that isn't the case, then everybody's going to get a second look. And we'll be just second-guessed all the time.
but those standards aren't they should be, not necessarily what the zoning board is looking at.
Well,
They
but
sh-
if you look at the presentation that Bob made, it's quite clear.
Yeah. I did go back.
Had it in front of them. It was attached to our resolution that we did.
Yeah.
It wasn't unanimous by the board. It was a 4-3. It was close, but close as horseshoes.
But it shouldn't even have been a question, and it shouldn't have taken 3 hours. Did we make a mistake? Well, what's the standard? Standard is you can't park in the front yard. What did you turn down? You can't park in the front yard?
Were we arbitrary and capricious, you know?
No, and it's a shame, because you know how hard we work to not be arbitrary, to be reasonable, to provide accommodation where we can. So, you work hard to do that, and the next thing you know, somebody just says, well, okay, it's arbitrary, it's capricious, it's unreasonable, I'm going to go to the zoning board and make that case. And I don't think they can make it, but they seem to be making it if they're voting to overturn us.
Well,
We'll slap their wrist.
so what we'll do, we'll expand our committee, we'll include Lorraine, which is helpful since she's the liaison, and it might give her communications to the next level anyway. So that would be good. I'll put a schedule together. I'll try to, meet each week or something for a couple weeks or a few weeks.
I'm here.
But first, we have to gather some information so we all have it and can review it. And if the rest of you have any input or ideas, don't hesitate to share it. We'll take a couple months and we'll bring our findings back to this group.
And I remember one of the zoning boards where I sat, because the attorney for the plaintiff quoted something that I said in the review, that if Cedar Shakes were found, he would have to come back to the board. The zoning board said, well, that wasn't in the resolution, so therefore, didn't ever said it.
Well, it is so part of the record, and, but that's what we're going to do as a group. We will figure this out, so.
Is it appropriate to offer a motion of adjournment now, or we have
We
something?
don't need them. We're in motion.
Adjourn.
Adjourn. Lorraine, congratulations on or condolences, I don't know which. Congratulations on winning the seat on city council.